The time is just gone 19 minutes past 8 as we kick off this morning, taking a look at Gaza once again, Rafah under attack, and we've seen the escalating massacres that are taking place as it grips the city and the south of the city close to the Egyptian border. And we're going across now to be joined by Palestinian activist and educator Baha Hilo. Baha, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome and jazakallah khairan so much for your time.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi. Thank you so much for having me.
Once again, it's clear as this genocide and this brutality has now extended itself close to the Egyptian border, to Rafah. And again, we can see exactly what the stated objective of Israel is, and to continue with the brutality and to continue with the carnage.
Yeah, for nearly 130 days, like the state of Israel have been like busy throwing bombs at Palestinian civilians. Like they murdered more than 4,000 people so far in almost every major city, town, refugees camp in the Gaza Strip, and they have been intentionally like pushing people south. And right now, like the plan is very, very obvious, like elimination of the Palestinian people from the Gaza Strip, leaving a few behind who will be subject to Israel's savagery and brutality with denial of water, denial of access of food, denial of safety. Um, and it's just like making the brutality of the siege that lasted for 17 years before October 7th seemed like, something really positive. The reality Israel have been imposing on Gaza over the past 130 days is obviously a reality of genocide.
Well, certainly, but also at the same time, when we see the intensification of this assault on Rafah, we see indiscriminate, we see merciless punishment and bombing of the people of Palestine. Tells us one thing: how desperate this Zionist entity and its leadership really is.
The state of Israel is acting based on its true nature. They have an opportunity of murdering as many people as possible. They have an opportunity of elimination and removal and displacement of thousands and thousands of Palestinians, and they are taking that opportunity. Do remember that the current Israeli Prime Minister have always stated that the solution is the displacement and transfer of the Palestinian people from whether it's the occupied West Bank or Gaza. And when it's not practical for them, then they cannot do anything but maintain apartheid. But the moment they see practical ways of removal and transfer, they take it. Also, do remember that the Israeli war criminal who's in charge right now, Benjamin Netanyahu, like when the previous Israeli war criminal Ariel Sharon decided to turn Gaza into a concentration camp and disengage or redeploy their forces from within Gaza to around Gaza, uh, Benjamin Netanyahu was completely against that plan. So for him, it's an opportunity to correct the mistake of turning Gaza into a concentration camp and turn it into an extermination camp.
Well, certainly. And also, we know this was the stated objective right from the beginning, to flatten Gaza and to obviously get people to move out of Gaza. There was always talk about Egypt absorbing many of the refugees. The desert, the Sinai desert, obviously was earmarked as well. And we know that this has been the objective. The key question here is, will this objective ever be achieved? Because the people of Palestine are different. Their decisions, their faith on their leadership, their faith on Hamas as well. And we've also seen in terms of how Hamas has basically conducted itself, even with these latest round of talks, talking about the ceasefire, the three-stage
Mhm.
ceasefire that Hamas has been talking about. And Hamas is not doing anything that goes against the will of the people of Palestine.
The Islamic resistance movement is doing what it's doing. It's resisting oppression and it is conducting itself in a way where there is always expressions of rejection of Israeli brutality, savagery, apartheid, and so on. What the state of Israel is doing right now is that it's considering every single individual in Gaza to be a member of the military wing of the Islamic resistance movement. The policy the state of Israel is applying is a military policy called the Baha Doctrine, where they target civilian infrastructure in order to prevent the enemy from using that infrastructure. And so far, the state of Israel have been viewing every single Palestinian in Gaza to be part of the infrastructure of the military wing of the Islamic resistance movement, therefore justifying the murder of each and every Palestinian they go on and kill. Like the question is like, it's not will they do it. It's like what is there to prevent them from going on with the same kind of rate of murder and savagery as we have been witnessing for the past 132 days. What is there to stop them? What is there to prevent them? Like so far, the state of Israel have used water as a weapon, food as a weapon, medicine as a weapon. They displaced nearly 2 million out of the 2.3 million Palestinians who are locked up in Gaza have already been displaced from homes into tents. We're speaking about Rafah. Rafah right now has nearly 1.5 million people. More than a half of the entire population of the Gaza Strip are locked up in a 35 square kilometers town. That town was already overpopulated before October 7th. It has a population of 250 to 260,000 people. And right now, we are talking about a population of 1.5 million people who are locked up in Gaza together, like locals who are in Rafah, as well as people who escaped Gaza, who escaped Deir al-Balah, who escaped Khan Yunis, who escaped Israel's brutality in almost every refugee camp that was leveled and bombed. So that entire population is right now is within 35 square kilometers area, which is nearly 10% of the size of the Gaza Strip. So we have nearly 80% of the population of Gaza Strip being locked up in 10% of the Gaza Strip. And right now, like Israel have been bombing Rafah. It's not like they saved Rafah. They have been continuously bombing Rafah. They destroyed more than 220 homes. They keep like murdering people right, left, and center, using the exact same kind of excuses that we've been hearing from the very beginning of the genocide, where like every place they are targeting, the intention is not to push people out. Every place they are targeting like possible places of the leadership of Hamas. They have done that to justify the destruction and bombardment of Shifa Hospital. They did that for the Ma'madani Hospital. They did that in UNRWA schools. They did that like everywhere they bomb. They say we are doing that because we are rooting out Hamas. And in fact, what they are doing is only like punishing people, murdering people, and kicking people out of their homes.
Yes, but also I think what is important, and this is quite an interesting piece that I read the other day, talking about Netanyahu and his attempt to penalize the population of Gaza for rejecting his offer. He says, and what this article is saying is this will likely backfire because at the end of the day, when we look at Hamas, very, very strategic as far as the Islamic resistance movement is concerned, where they are in a position of strength because by making these counter proposals, what Hamas is telling Israel that our military wing is still good, it is still intact, and you have not achieved your objectives.
No, the state of Israel is very, very, very far from dismantling like the military wing of the Islamic resistance movement. They are very far from even touching on the political membership of the Islamic resistance movement. What the state of Israel is doing is what the state of Israel have always done, like punishing civilians for being part of the social environment of the Islamic resistance movement. Like the state of Israel in combat is not able to dismantle like anything. Like they are talking about nearly 500 kilometers of tunnels, and the state of Israel like did not even expose like 5% of that. So what the state of Israel is doing is like, yeah, we want to starve everybody, as if like militants are not prepared for this. So who are they being starving? They are starving the civilian population. That is not viewed as civilian population. They literally like consider every single living being in Gaza Strip um, to be an enemy that is going to be eliminated. You see that in the behavior of Israeli soldiers. You see that in the executions that they have been carrying out in every place they invade. You see that in the forms of interrogation they apply upon Palestinians they arrest. So in a way, like the state of Israel is very very far away from achieving its goal of dismantling or eliminating the Islamic resistance movement. The second thing you should know that it's a miracle that you have militants who are still standing in the face of this, the fourth largest army on the planet, for nearly 130 days, and they still like attack positions of Israeli soldiers, attack military vehicles, and so on. The one achievement the state of Israel have achieved is like making sure like Palestinian civilians are being starved, making sure that Palestinian civilians are being denied access to water, electricity, medicine, and so on. That's Israel's achievement. When it comes to actual combatant and battle on the ground, like they barely have any achievements.
Yes, and also just coming to this latest, it's come out of South Africa, and once again, South Africa taking the lead, making this urgent request to the ICJ to stop the attacks on Rafah. And this comes after the case that South Africa had presented at the International Court of Justice, the case for genocide. One disappointing outcome was that the ICJ had not ruled for a complete ceasefire, and we knew this was going to happen. By not calling for the ceasefire, Israel will continue acting with impunity and doing what it is. And we see the result now in Rafah. But what is even more disappointing is we see all this talk that is taking place, in the Arab world with regard to ceasefire, the deals, all of that. But we still haven't seen the Arab world coming out as strong as even South Africa with regards to international action against Israel.
And if you want to understand like the position of the so-called Arab world towards Palestine, there is a parallel. All the dictatorships in Africa that watched South Africa being brutalized by the apartheid regime and did nothing. They were like either watching or they were concerned about their interests with the allies of South Africa, namely Britain and the United States at the time. So the Arab world, like, who are we fooling? Like the Arab world is made of dictatorships from the farthest east near Persia to the farthest west on the Atlantic. Like you have a dictatorship after dictatorship after dictatorship, and their best interest and profits and benefits come from their alliance with the United States. Call that Egypt, call that Jordan, call that the United Arab Emirates, Saudi, and so on. Those regimes that are supposed to, stop the war, supposed to open borders and try to make sure that Palestinian survivors of genocide like have what they need to continue to survive. Instead of doing that, like they just watch and they issue statements of condemnation, and if they want to make a stronger statement, they will call for the United States to do ceasefire. Like we are being bombed by U.S. weapons, but the state that have been bombing us out of existence is called the State of Israel. So what these people are busy doing is just maintain the status quo and keep watching. When the State of Israel is done murdering people, then they will try to do what the State of Israel would allow them to do in terms of humanitarian aid. Um, the positions of South Africa have been, whether with the expulsion of uh, the Israeli ambassador seizing diplomatic relations with Israeli apartheid, the positions of taking the state of Israel to the International Court of Justice, all those like positions are pushing the bar very high for those dictatorships. We live in a situation where a country as far as South Africa is much morally and diplomatically closer to the plight of Palestinians for justice than the positions of any Arab dictatorship. And that should be understood in the sense that free people can help oppressed people, but like dictatorships are not there to help oppressed people. uh, you know. So the position of Arab countries in towards Palestine is very similar to the positions of nearly 40 to 50 countries throughout Africa regarding apartheid South Africa. Watch, and maybe the best thing you can do is condemnation. So dictatorships in the Arab world are watching and issuing condemnations, but nothing else.
Well, Baha, I'm just looking at obviously your body language, and clearly this is exhausting. It is tiring. It's definitely taking its toll on you, and I'm sure it's taken its toll on millions of Palestinians right across, all of Palestine and also outside of Palestine as well. It's been nonstop. It's been relentless, and I also shudder to think with the month of Ramadan coming up in a few weeks' time. What Ramadan the people of Palestine will be experiencing.
Well, the like every time we think it will not, like we witness the worst, the state of Israel shocks us with another act of savagery to tell us no, it can still get worse. Yes, my generation have never experienced genocide, never witnessed genocide on this full scale. So yes, we are in a way at shock. We're on our toes. We're trying to just figure out what you know is the outcome of all this destruction and all of this blood. And yes, witnessing genocide in its own is pretty exhausting. But the one thing I know is that the population that survived 20 months of brutality and ethnic cleansing, the same kind of population that survived massacres after massacres, have been surviving 75 years of Israeli apartheid, is able to survive also genocide. The one thing we understand right now is that the state of Israel did not leave a crime in the book without committing it. So the state of Israel have been committing the crime of ethnic cleansing. The state of Israel have been committing the crime of apartheid, and now the state of Israel is committing the crime of genocide. I do not know what more crimes there are in the book for the state of Israel to commit in order to be treated as a criminal regime. But we will survive.
Inshallah, well, we continue with it and we continue our support for the people of Palestine. We continue making dua, and in any way whatsoever, whatever we can do for the people of Palestine, we will continue. We will continue raising our voices as well. Baha, Jazakallah, shukran so much for your time with us, as always, with us here on Salam Media. We wish you well, my brother, and our du'as are with you. Our du'as are with the people of Palestine. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Assalamu alaikum, and please keep us in your dua. Salam.
Walaikum salam rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Baha Hilo, Palestinian activist and educator, with us this morning. The time is just gone 8:38. We're going to go for a break. We come back. We'll be joined by Hassan Lorga talking about South Africa making this urgent request to the ICJ.